All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Healthy and Whole podcast. Today's topic is going to be how to master your consistency with your day-to-day food so that you can stop being stuck in that cycle of having to start all over again. Today, I'm actually coming prepared with a fancy schmancy slideshow here to walk us through this presentation. And just to give some context, this is actually a talk that I gave to our coaching clients at Healthy and Whole last week. And this teaching came out of, I had actually given a presentation the week before on just in general how to make discipline and make being disciplined more natural and easy for people. And when I gave that talk, I was specifically really talking to a lot of the folks that we coach who are working on getting more consistent with working out, more consistent with their strength training, more consistent with hitting their step goals. And after that talk, one of our clients in the program messaged me and said, "Hey, do you have a talk or anything specific you could give us that would be really targeted at helping me to be more consistent with my food, my daily food and nutrition?" He's relatively new in the program and just really wanting to up-level his consistency, because with consistency comes better results, right? And so I put together this talk, gave it to the students, got really good feedback on it. And so I thought to myself, this would actually make a really good podcast episode, because I know and I realize that for virtually anybody out there who listens to this podcast who is trying to sustainably lose weight and has failed time after time after time, that probably one of the biggest reasons why that happens is a struggle, a day-to-day struggle with trying to stay on track with your healthy eating and all of the different things that cause you to struggle with that consistency and then struggle to get the results, and then ultimately cause you to get frustrated, fall off track, and have to start all over again. So that is what today is going to be all about. So without further ado, I'm going to just dive right into this, okay? So when it comes to mastering the consistency of your daily food intake, it is equal parts preference, practicality, skill, and commitment. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? Equal parts preference, practicality, skill, and commitment. All right. I'm going to talk through each of these in detail, and I'm going to give you some really good questions, some things to explore to help you not only understand what's going to take to become masterfully consistent with your day-to-day eating, but to also make it extremely natural feeling and consistent along the way. All right. So just high level requirements for success to be ultra consistent with your day-to-day eating. 4 things: preference, practicality, skill, and commitment. So when I'm talking about preference, I'm saying that if you don't enjoy it, you simply won't do it, right? We as human beings, we know this to be very true. If we don't enjoy doing something, we will find every excuse under the sun not to do that thing. We will procrastinate. We will find other things to do. We will avoid it at all costs. In the beginning, when we're really uncomfortable, a lot of people do turn to dietary solutions and protocols like keto and different things like that are not at all long-term sustainable, but they've heard that they get really good results, and they'll do them for a time, but they'll get good results, but they won't be sustainable, and they'll get burnout very quickly, right? And so when I'm talking about preferences, there's a number of things we have to really pay attention to build a high level of enjoyability, et cetera, into the things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis with our food in order for us to even have a shot at being consistent with it for the rest of our lives. Because that's the thing, when it comes to building an actual lifestyle that will give us sustainable results that will last a lifetime, we have to understand that literally anything that we do to lose weight, we then have to essentially continue to do to maintain weight or to maintain control over our weight. And anybody who's ever lost weight and gained it all back knows this, because they did something to lose the weight. And then after they lost the weight, they stopped doing the thing that they were doing that allowed them to lose the weight, and then they gained the weight back, right? So very important that we continue to do that. So we have to maximize preference. We've got to enjoy it. And there's a few other things in there we're going to explore here. Practicality. If it's not practical, you won't do it. If it takes too much time, too much effort, too many resources, if it's just not convenient enough for you to practically execute it consistently on a daily basis, then you're not going to do it. Okay. And then skill. If you don't actually have the knowledge and the skill and know what you're doing and know how to do it, then again, you can't do it and you won't do it. Okay. So this really shows up for people when we think about all of the different facets of life that we have to eat food. We eat food at home when we're by ourselves, with our family. We eat food outside of the house when we go out for social time and go out and we go on vacation. We have holidays, we go to work conferences, and we have food catered into us. There's just so many different environments that we can find ourselves in when it comes to the food that we eat. And it literally requires a certain threshold of knowledge and skill to know what you're doing, to navigate all this stuff that life throws at us, so that we can stay on track, so that we can maintain a sense of control over our weight and our results. So preference, we have to like it. Practicality, we have to be able to, it has to be practical and executable on a daily basis. And we have to know what we're doing. We have to have the actual knowledge and skill to do it right in any environment. And then lastly, we have to have really good commitment. Because if you aren't fully committed, you won't do it. And the reason commitment is actually so important, because this whole talk is about building sustainability. But the thing about building preference, building up the enjoyability, the variety, the excitement of the things that you eat on a daily basis, finding recipes that you actually really enjoy, things like that. The whole idea of building practicality and convenience into what you do and being really time efficient with your meal prep and being able to have your groceries and all that stuff to make it executable on a daily basis, to be able to learn nutritionally how to read labels and how to do the meal prep and how to do everything right and how to eat out and have cheat meals and then get back on track and take diet breaks for vacations. Learning and putting all of that stuff in place, it takes time. It takes a real amount of time. For most people, it takes at least 6 months to get most of that into place. And for a lot of people, then it takes 12 to 18 months to really get good at it. So that's why we have to have commitment. Because in the beginning, when we first start doing this, we have so much to learn. We have so much to build. We have to build menus. We have to try stuff out, figure out what we like, what we don't like, figure out our habits and our routines, put boundaries in place. And it's hard in the beginning. It's overwhelming in the beginning. It's confusing in the beginning. You have tons of questions and it just takes time to do it. And that's why commitment is so important, is because in the early days, you have to have that commitment to get through the time necessary and the effort and the energy necessary and the focus necessary to actually build all of this stuff so that you can be sort of effortlessly or naturally consistent every day. And it doesn't feel like you need massive amounts of discipline or willpower to do it. But then also we need commitment down the road, because there's going to be times or environments where we just can't go around, even in maintenance, we can't go around just indulging all the time. So no matter what, there's always going to be some level of commitment and discipline needed in order to stay on the path to maintain your results for the long term. Okay. So we have to have preference. We have to really maximize for our preferences, maximize for practicality. We have to learn and build the knowledge and the skills, and we have to be committed. Okay. So next, let's just deep dive into this whole concept of preferences and how to really, truly maximize it. And to do that, I've got 3 prompts here that I'm going to give you and that I'm going to talk through. And these are really the things that you've really got to maximize for if you really actually want to build a lifestyle with food that works for you and that is enjoyable. Okay. So prompt number 1 is do you have enough options that you enjoy at a high enough threshold that it will truly feel sustainable for you? Okay. Now, the threshold is super important here. Okay. Because we all have a long list of foods that we really enjoy eating that are very hyper palatable, right? I could list off a billion of them. I love burgers. I love fries. I love pizza. I love Mexican food. I love Chinese food. I love food, right? And a lot of you have experienced what it feels like to go out, start a diet or start a weight loss journey, and you're eating food that isn't that enjoyable, but it's getting results. And so you're forcing yourself, you're really making yourself stick to it, and you're doing really good and you're getting great results. And you do good maybe for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, if you're really lucky. And then family vacation pops up, or you go out for a birthday dinner, or you do something, and that first time you decide to let the reins loose a little bit and to just actually indulge. And then when you do that, after that, you have this meal, or you have like one of your favorite meals or cheat meals or some ice cream or something like that. And you all of a sudden you experience that amazing, hyper palatable, overwhelming flavor sensation that you had not been getting while you were eating all your really healthy food. And then all of a sudden after that, when you think about going back to eating your normal everyday healthy food to go back to losing weight, you're like, I can't do it. It's too hard. And that's where you start to fall off, because there's too big of a gap between the taste and the enjoyment of the food that you eat when you're trying to actually be healthy, the everyday food, and the food that you eat when you go out and you indulge. So we actually have to raise the threshold of the enjoyability of the food that you eat just every day, all day, on a normal Tuesday or a Wednesday or whatever day it would be, so that it is high enough in the enjoyability threshold that it's close enough to how much you enjoy those other cheat foods, that when you do let loose and have a planned cheat or something like that, that you can actually go back to eating your normal day-to-day food because it also tastes really good. And there's not that feeling of, I can't go back to this type of a thing. So that's prompt number one. That's requirement number one. Do you have enough options that you enjoy to a high enough threshold? Okay. Literally, in our program, Healthy and Whole, with our clients, we do workshops with the clients. We have menus where we sit down and brainstorm and we work. We have an entire cookbook full of recipes that are made to feel like cheat meals, where there's ice cream and there's tacos and there's Parmesan chicken subs and there's pasta and there's chips and dip, and there's all these things that feel like they are a cheat or an indulgence, but they're dialed in from a calorie and a macro perspective to provide massive amounts of protein at a very proper calorie range for people, so that they can really raise the threshold of enjoyment for their everyday food. And that really fixes this problem. But no matter what, if you think that you're going to have a scenario where you're going to be able to be sustainable and have great results and stay consistent without enjoyment in your food, you already know that is not going to work because you've probably done it before. Okay. Requirement number two, when we're talking about really raising the preferences and optimizing for preferences so you can be consistent, is, do you have enough options to stay ahead of burnout? This is more talking about variety. All people have a different threshold when it comes to their need for how much variety they need in their day-to-day eating. Some people need such a high amount of variety that they can't even stomach the idea of eating leftovers from a meal they made yesterday, 2 days in a row, right? And then other people are super routine. They have such a low need for variety that they could eat the same 5 things every day for 6 months or even a year, and they just really like them, and it's not a big deal. Most people are not that. Most people are kind of in the middle. They like to have some routine, some consistency. They like to have a sort of a menu of anywhere from 10 to 20 options for meals and snacks that they really like, and that they can kind of swap in and out. And that's enough variety that they don't have to get burnt out from eating one thing or two things or three things for weeks on end, to where they then start to cheat and go off plan, go rogue. So you have to have enough enjoyability in the things that you're eating on a daily basis. And you also have to have enough variety to stay ahead of diet fatigue and burnout. Okay? That's requirement number 2. Requirement number 3 is, do you have enough options that are enjoyable in all environments and scenarios where you would probably need them on average every day? So do you have enough options, enough variety in your menus at home that are also highly enjoyable? Do you have enough items for enough variety and enough enjoyment when you leave the house to go to work? When you're out with friends, do you have enough snacks, protein snacks options? Do you get the picture here, okay? These are really the 3 basic requirements that if you don't have enough enjoyment in your day-to-day eating, if you do not have enough variety to stay ahead of burnout, and if you do not have enough options in all of those environments and scenarios that you might run into in life, then at some point in time, your consistency is going to break down. You're either going to get tired of eating the same things over again, or you're going to have your first cheat meals, and then you're going to sort of resist going back to your healthy food because it just doesn't taste good enough for you. Or you're going to go into some new environment where you simply don't have an option for that environment, and then it's going to throw you off track. And then that might be just like the thing that throws you off track permanently if you don't really optimize for these other things, okay? So this is all about building intrinsic motivation and reducing the reliance on willpower and discipline for you to be successful. Because if you can really raise the amount of enjoyment you have in your just normal, everyday, high protein, low calorie food that you eat, you have tons of options, and you have options in every environment known to man in your life, then you have a lot of enjoyment and intrinsic value and motivation in the process. You don't need now to have an external goal or someone holding you accountable necessarily to do the right thing, because it tastes good to do the right thing in your life, okay? So that's how we start to optimize for your preferences. And again, I just can't hammer this home enough. There's really not a pathway to sustainable results where you don't pay attention to this, okay? So we've got to start with this, and that's why it's number 1. Okay, so let's move on to the next one here, and that is practicality. Is it doable, right? And we have 3 more prompts or requirements here that we're going to go through here for this one. So, is it doable? Prompt or requirement number 1. Do you have options that work for the time that you have available to you to allot to being successful with your healthy day-to-day eating? This, again, is a spectrum that varies a lot depending on the person. I know people, and I have clients in our program who maybe they're a recent retiree and they're not working. They're more so entering into a stage of their life where they're taking care of kids and grandkids. They're traveling more, and they have a lot more time on their hands, right? And so they can take the time to go grocery shopping multiple times a week. They can take the time to meal prep for 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday, or they can just outright sit down and cook every single meal from scratch if they wanted to. They don't really have to have a high degree of super efficient, time efficient recipes and things like that, because they have all the time in the world. Now, I also have clients who are a little bit more like me, and this is more the average person. They have multiple kids. Oftentimes, those kids are in sports, travel sports, a lot of the time these days, travel cheer, travel baseball, travel soccer, travel, you name it. And they also work jobs. So they're full-time in a career, full-time parenting, and their kids are full-time in different sports and activities. And so they're just running all the time, right? And we're kind of entering into this a little bit, me and Joni in our lives with our family. And so we have less time to figure out how to stay on track and have prepared what we need to have prepared and to be able to grocery shop and do those things. And so this is super important in that you've got to be honest with yourself about the lifestyle that you are actually wanting to live. And if you really want to live this lifestyle where you work a full-time career and you have all of your kids in different activities and you're running from this thing to that thing, that's not wrong. It's hectic and chaotic at times, but it's not wrong. We just have to acknowledge that that's what you want, and we have to build up a strategy and make sure you have options that will work for that. And so what does that mean for you? Well, if you're really busy, it means that you've probably got to have strategies around when you're going to do your grocery shopping, where you're going to have stuff delivered to you once or twice a week so that you don't actually have to take the time to go out and do it. But you've got to be able to have meals and snacks that are extremely convenient, ultra convenient even at times. You may only be able to take 10 to 15 minutes max to throw together a meal, sometimes even less. You need to have at times what we call ultra convenient options, which are maybe 3 minutes or less, require almost no effort. Whereas someone else might be able to take 30 to 45 minutes to crack open the Whole30 book or some other book that they bought from Barnes & Noble and requires 25 ingredients and 30 to 45 minutes prep time to make one meal, right? So do you have the options that work for the time that you have allotted to be successful? Okay? Very, very important. Again, this is why in our cookbook with the clients that we use in Healthy and Whole, I don't put a recipe into our cookbook for our clients if it takes more than about 15 minutes max of prep time. Not sure if it's going into a crock pot or if it's going into the oven. It may bake longer than that, or it may be into the crock pot a little bit longer than that. But generally speaking, if it's going to take no more than 15 minutes of hands-on, stand there, do the work prep time, and a lot of them are 10 minutes or less. And I do that specifically because most of our clients are extremely busy, right? So do you have options that work for the time that you have allotted? If not, we've got to fix that issue. Otherwise, you will not be consistent, okay? Number 2, do you have what you need to execute effectively, i.e. your groceries, meal prep, etc.? Some people, again, they don't need to meal prep. They have time to make every single meal. They can go to the grocery every single day if they want to. Most of us, that's not reality, okay? So again, you can have the best meal plan. You can have the best of intentions. But if you don't have the groceries in the house, if you don't have the convenient snacks when you need them, if you haven't taken 20 minutes to prep a bulk recipe on a Sunday or a Wednesday evening or whatever makes sense for you to do that, then you're not going to be able to execute. So it's all about making sure that you have ideally some routines and systems in place for this. To give you an idea of how I do this every week, at least in this season of life, what this looks like for me is I typically will go grocery shopping on a Sunday after church, sometimes on a Saturday, either Saturday or Sunday. I will just run over to Walmart and Kroger here locally. I'll take an hour's worth of time. I will run over there. I'll get everything that I need between those two stores for the week. And then in this season, I work from home. So I do have an opportunity, more of an opportunity than the average person to make my meals for the most part. What I will typically do is I will grocery shop and I will buy what I need to make one bulk prep recipe from our cookbook. So this week I made the stroganoff pasta recipe. And that will get me between 6 and 8 meals when I make that. So what I typically will do is I will make one bulk prep recipe a week right now, and that will carry me through for most of my lunches for the week. And then I typically, most days, will make a dinner at night that is 15 minutes or less of prep time. And that's what works for me. Grocery shop for about an hour on Saturday or Sunday, meal prep for about 15 to 20 minutes max, one meal that will carry, or one dish that will carry me on for 5 to 6 days of lunches. And then I will just make I only eat 2 meals a day. I eat 2 meals a day and then 2 snacks a day. And one of my meals typically is equivalent to the size of 2 meals. Okay. That's just what works for me right now. But that's my system, is I know when I'm shopping, and I know that if I make that one bulk prep recipe, then I can usually have time in the evening times to make my other meals every day, and I'm fine. Okay. Number 3, do you have ultra convenient and or backup options when you need them? Okay. Ultra convenient to me is one of 2 things. There are going to be days where you just have no energy or no time, or you just had such a hard day that by the time you get to the end of the day, you're like, I got the time, but I just do not want to put any effort into my food. But I don't want to cheat. I don't want to sabotage myself. And if that's the case, then there are 2 things that we want to look at. Number 1, do we have some ultra convenient options around the house that are literally what I would call like the 3-minute option, the bowl of cereal option? Like one of my favorites right now is 2 cups of Ghost peanut butter cereal, which is a high protein cereal. And I like to pair that with Kroger Carb Master fat-free ultra filtered vanilla milk, which is a very just sweet vanilla flavored high protein milk. And when you pair that milk with 2 cups of Ghost PB cereal, it's so good. It takes me back to my peanut butter Captain Crunch childhood in a heartbeat. And I eat that cereal several times a week. Not just when I don't have time, just because I enjoy it, because it's very high enjoyability threshold and it's very high convenience. But that is there so that it's one of my ultra convenient options. If I just have a day where I have 0 time or 0 energy, or I'm just spent mentally, emotionally, I will turn to the bowl of cereal option or something different. So you want to have a few options there that are equivalent to that. They're just super low effort, but high payoff because they fit what you need from a standpoint of your calories and your protein content, et cetera, to be able to get good results. So you don't have to go rogue and you don't have to cheat. The second thing I would look at here is, do you have helpful DoorDash options? There are some evenings, there are actually 2 evenings a week, Wednesdays and Thursdays, that I teach a late group teaching and learning call in our program. On Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m., I teach a food and fitness call, very similar to this. And then I on Thursdays, I teach a heart and mind call, which is all mental, emotional, mindset type teaching. And on those days, I don't finish with that call until between 7:30 p.m. and 8 p.m. And then I get up at 4 a.m. right now. So it's time for me to be starting to like really wind down for bed. So I don't have a whole lot of time on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So there are days where when I get off of my call, I will just DoorDash from someplace here in town because I just want to do everything else that I'm doing to prep for getting ready for bed and all that stuff. And then my food gets here, I eat it, and then I'm ready for bed, right? So it's good to have some really good DoorDash options. One of my favorites is we have a Chinese restaurant right over here. There's some really great, very lean Chinese options I can get from the Chinese restaurant. Get a lettuce wrap from Jimmy John's. Get a burrito bowl from Chipotle. There's a lot of good options around, but do you know what those options are for you? Right? It's important that you have that stuff figured out. So 3 big requirements, so to speak, for making this actually practical so that you can do it and you can be consistent. Do you have options that work for the time that you have allotted? Meaning, do you have recipes that are from a time commitment standpoint doable for you? And meal ideas that are doable for you? Do you have the groceries? Do you need to do meal prep? And if so, when are you doing that? And number 3, do you have ultra convenient options so that you can be successful even in sort of like the least ideal environment for time and energy, or if you're just spent, okay? So let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. And that is, we're talking about skill. Are you equipped? And there's actually 4 things here that I want to explore. Are you equipped with the knowledge and the skill to actually be able to execute this consistently? Okay. So requirement number 1, do you know how to build simple hand-portioned plates anywhere, anytime that would approximately give you a healthy calorie intake for a meal and ideally be relatively high protein. Okay. Do you know how to do that? We actually teach this to all our clients. It's the very first thing that we teach to our clients in Healthy and Whole, because at least then we know that there's virtually no environment that our client couldn't go into, whether they walk into a cookout or a graduation open house or a meeting where a buffet of food has been catered or a conference or something. And they couldn't look around and say, okay, that's a lean protein. I'm going to do a palm-sized portion of that lean protein, some chicken breast there. Okay, that's some non-starchy vegetables. I can have as much of that as I want. Maybe it's some salad, some broccoli, some sauteed onions and peppers, whatever it might be. And then, okay, cool, there's rice or there's potatoes or something like that, right? And they're able to literally walk in and say, okay, palm size of protein, fist size portion of some carbs, add all the veggies I want, good to go. And I literally just taught you just then how we do that. Right? Can you identify a lean protein and give yourself a palm-sized portion of that? Can you identify a carbohydrate and give yourself a fist-sized portion of that? And can you identify the non-starchy, healthy vegetables in the room and give yourself as much of that as you can to really fill you up? Very simple. But if you don't know how to do that, then you're going to struggle in certain environments where you didn't prepare the food, or you just go into an environment and you have to figure it out. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, do you know how to order properly portioned and balanced meals in restaurants? We all know how to go to a restaurant when it's a cheat, and we know how to really let loose and have all the fun in the restaurant, right? We know how to go to the Mexican restaurant and eat all the chips and the queso and eat the fajitas and the rice and the beans and get the Texas margarita to go with it. We know how to go big, don't we? But do we know how to go portioned and balanced when it's not a cheat? Because we have a lot of clients who travel a lot, or they just are very social beings, and they eat out 3 or 4 times or more a week. And if you're on a weight loss journey, or you're let alone trying to even maintain weight, and you're going to restaurants for meals out socially or for work that much in a given week, just one cheat meal, or one meal where you're not really being diligent in a restaurant can easily hit 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 calories. And so for the average female who, especially a female who's older, in her 50s, 60s, in menopause or postmenopause, not very active or not active enough, they don't have very big margin to stay in a calorie deficit and to get great results and to be doing that. And so the reality is, if you eat out a decent amount, there's going to be a lot more meals that you are not indulging in restaurants than you are indulging in restaurants to see consistent results. And so that means you've got to know how to go into a restaurant anywhere, no matter what it is, and how to order something that would be properly portioned and balanced so that it would not be a cheat. I'll give you a very quick rundown of the simplest way that we know to do this. We actually teach 4 different methods to our clients in Healthy and Whole. I don't have time to teach it here, but I'll give you the simplest method, which is if you go into a restaurant and that restaurant has calories on the menu, we recommend trying to order something that would be 400 calories or less and trying to make it a lean, high protein option. So the simplest way to do this is what I call the divide and conquer method, which means you're going to look at the menu, try to look for an option that does look leaner, lower fat, lower carb, higher protein. Look for lean proteins and vegetables if you can, and look for the calories listed on the menu. If the menu has something that is 800 calories, roughly, then you would order that and you would eat half and take half home, because the half you eat is going to be roughly 400 calories or less. And there we go. We ordered something that was in an ideal calorie range. If you go and you look around and you find something and it's 1,200-ish calories, you could order that, eat 1/3 of it, take 2/3 home and have 2 more meals out of it. And there, it may not be exact or ideal necessarily all the time, but that's going to get you really, really close. Okay. So do you know how to do that? And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. That's just the simplest, the divide and conquer method, right? Find something and divide it into the number of portions that would allow you to hit that 400 calorie range. Make sure it looks like it's higher protein, lower carb, lower fat. You're generally speaking going to be okay if you do that. Number 3, do you know how to craft your own custom meals and recipes to standard? Remember, I just gave you basically our standard for calories. We like to see weight loss centered meals or even weight maintenance meals to be standardized around 400 calories. And we like them to be a minimum of 35% protein, but optimal would be 40% protein or higher of those calories coming from protein in a meal. Okay. So do you know how to come up with your own, whether it's at home or in restaurants, do you know how to craft meals, no matter how many ingredients you might throw into them or recipes, to fit those standards, right? This is actually a skill that we teach our clients at Healthy and Whole. And again, I can't teach it here in the time that we have, but it's incredibly important that you know how to do that you know how to use an app like MyFitnessPal to put things in and to tweak them until they hit an ideal standard. Because once you can do that, you can really expand your variety and your menu at will with infinite variety for as long as you want to. And you know how to do that to make sure that all the new things you're coming up with, you're cooking up with your creativity, are hitting the standards that you need to get more results or to maintain your results effectively, okay? That you're getting them into a calorie range that works and that you're getting enough protein and you're maximizing flavor and volume and all that stuff because you know what you're doing. And then lastly, this one's really fun and really adds a ton of flexibility, is do you know how to use strategic fasting or feasting to stay on track? So what do I mean when I say strategic fasting or feasting? Strategic fasting would be if I go to a work event or I go to a conference or I go to a restaurant, maybe I get invited to lunch with a close friend at the Mexican restaurant. But this Friday I'm leaving for Miami for a beach trip with Joni. And maybe I'm not wanting to do a cheat right now. Maybe I'm trying to really lean out so I can go to the beach and feel really good and feel shredded at the beach. So I don't want to go to the Mexican restaurant and eat 2 baskets of chips and queso and eat a huge meal. I'm trying to really be dialed in at this moment. I don't want to have a cheat. So I might go to the restaurant with my friend and have a really good time with them and have a really great conversation, but I might just order a Diet Pepsi while they're eating whatever they're eating. That's strategic fasting. I'm willing to fast through a meal or an environment to honor my goals. Maybe you go to a place where it's literally all they have is just really fried food or it's like a dessert party or something like that. And you just know that you don't really want this. You're not okay with this being a big cheat or a big thing that's going to delay your results in that moment. Sometimes you'll go into those environments and you say, yep, bring it. I'm ready. But sometimes you're going to go into those and say, I don't feel comfortable with this. This does not match my plan right now. And you want to be able to strategically be able to fast through that. And that's a skill. That's something you have to get your body used to. You have to get your body used to being able to go for a period of time without a significant amount of calories coming into it, so it knows what it feels like and is a freak out when you do it. But that's really helpful. I can't tell you how many times strategic fasting has saved me when I had a goal that I was working toward and I got thrust into an environment where there was just no good options and I really just didn't want to let loose. I just didn't want to cheat. I wanted to pursue the goal. And because I'm gotten my body used to fasting and I know what I'm doing, I was able to just have a low calorie beverage or something like that and be fine. That's strategic fasting. Strategic feasting would be where you say, okay, I know that we're going out to dinner tonight with our friends, and I'm going to want to have a margarita. I'm going to want to have a drink. I'm going to want to indulge in some chips and salsa or queso, and I'm going to have a burger and fries. And I want to be able to do that, but I also don't want to just like completely go off the rails and spend the next 5 days recovering from that meal before I see a new low on the scale. So what could I do? Well, I could eat lighter earlier in the day or do some fasting earlier in the day to preserve meal and snack servings so that later on I could have a bigger meal, right? So like typically if we shoot for 400-ish calories per meal, and we get 3 meal servings in a day typically, then that's 1,200 calories of meals throughout the day. Well, if you know you're going to go out to a restaurant meal and you really want to save for that, maybe you only eat protein snacks earlier in the day and you stick to low calorie beverages, and then you go into dinner with 1,200 calories to play with. That could work, right? And again, it's all knowledge and skill based. And hopefully what you're starting to see here is that when you learn to do all this stuff, when you build the knowledge and you build the skill inside the home, outside of the home, in all of these different environments, and you really craft all of this properly, then you can stay consistent anytime, anywhere, any situation. You have the flexibility to navigate it in a way that feels really good to you and doesn't feel constantly restrictive, which is where things really can start to break down. Okay, let's move on to the next one here. And that is, are you committed? Are you really and truly fully committed? And I have 4 prompts here that we're going to talk to. And remember, I said commitment is very necessary, especially in the beginning, because it takes time to build all the stuff that we just talked about. All those requirements take time to meet those to where you can be really consistent. You can white knuckle it for a while, but to make it actually sustainable is going to take time. So are you committed? Number 1, are you willing to go the extra mile to get what you need when and if possible? So again, let's give an example here and say, okay, maybe you are out running errands and all of a sudden you're hungry and it's time for you to eat. And maybe you didn't come prepared and you're not really wanting to fast, but you look over and there's a McDonald's there and you like McDonald's. And the easiest thing to do would be to just run through McDonald's. And maybe you have the kids in the car and they're like, Mommy, we want chicken nuggets from McDonald's. And you're like, okay, whatever. So you go through the drive-thru, you get them the chicken nuggets and the fries and all that stuff, and it smells really good. But you're like, but you know what? This isn't really going to work for me. And it's not really what I want to do for my goals right now. And maybe 2 miles down the road, there is a Panda Express. And you can go into Panda Express and you can get some chicken, some lean chicken teriyaki, some lean chicken breast and some vegetables, or you could go to Chipotle and have a burrito bowl with some chicken, some veggies, some salsa, and make it taste really good. You have options, but they're a couple of miles down the road. That's where it says, are you willing to go the extra mile to get what you need if possible? If you're not willing to go that extra mile, you're not going to be consistent, because you're going to be presented with all of these different environments and all of these different scenarios where if you're not fully committed, you're going to just take the easy route. You're not going to want to inconvenience other people around you to go get what you need. Or you're not going to want to take the extra time. You're just going to go the easy route. And that's not going to lead to consistency. Number 2, are you willing to abstain or fast until a better option is available, right? I kind of talked about that through when I talked about strategic fasting. But you've got to be willing to do that, right? You've got to be willing to walk into the boardroom where everybody's there for the meeting and they ordered in box after box of pizza and everybody's eating it there in front of you, and you've got to be willing to say, no, you know what? I'm gonna sip my water, or I'm gonna grab a Diet Pepsi or whatever, and I'm just gonna enjoy the meeting and enjoy this, and then afterwards I'll go get what I need. But you got to be willing to do that. You really have to be willing to honor your actual priorities and your goals versus saying, well, I'll just give in. It's here. I guess I got to eat it, that kind of a thing. Number 3, are you willing to settle for a less exciting option when necessary to stay on track? You guys know, because I started this whole talk out talking about how important it is to build massive amounts of enjoyment into your day-to-day eating and variety. So I'm not here to tell you that you should settle for boring food on the regular. But sometimes, occasionally, you might have to in order to honor your goals in a situation, right? If you go to a restaurant or somewhere, or maybe you're just out on the road and there's nothing good to eat around for miles, and all there is a gas station. And you walk into that gas station and, the only thing they have, you're hungry, and the only thing they have that's even remotely, healthy is a protein bar that you're not all that excited to eat. But they've got chicken tenders, they've got pizza. Are you willing to settle for a less exciting option when necessary to stay on track? I think it's really important for you to answer that question. And I hope the answer is going to be yes. Because again, if it's not, if your answer is not yes to all of these, you're probably going to struggle to be consistent. And commitment might be where your problem is, okay? And then lastly, but very important, especially for those of you who are around other people around food a lot, is, are you willing to be different? Are you willing to honor your needs and to accept that your needs are important and more important than fitting in? I've had a lot of clients over the years who travel a lot. They go and take clients out to lunch and dinner. They go out to lunch and dinner with their boss and their coworkers. They have social groups, running groups, all these different things. Church friends, small group. There's no shortage of opportunities for us to be around people that we love to be around. That real friendships, real great relationships. And honestly, a lot of those environments are around food. And a lot of those environments are not around necessarily the healthy food that is balanced and optimized for the goals that you're trying to pursue and your values and your priorities for your health right now in this season of your life. Not everybody else is on that train with you. So if you are someone who goes into those environments on a regular basis, and in your brain, if you have this deep fear that you're just not going to be liked or accepted unless you do exactly like everybody else is doing, then every time you go into that environment, you're going to conform to what everybody else is doing because you think that's what you need to do to be accepted and to be liked. And every time you do it, it's going to be sabotaging your actual goals and values and priorities at the feet of being, in your mind, accepted or fitting in or having fun. Personally, I value my health higher than that. And I know that if I do this right, there will be times when I can go and just let loose and have fun and eat whatever I want to with these people. But that's not going to be all the time. There's no scenario where I can just do that anytime I want and be able to live with the kind of health that I want to live with. So I have to be willing to be different sometimes. There'll be times where I go and I eat all the chips and queso. But there are also going to be other times where I'm going to have to be the guy at the table where everybody else is eating pizza and I'm just drinking a Diet Pepsi, right? Or I vividly remember a memory from my last job when I worked for Ryder Logistics in a warehouse over here in Plainfield, Indiana. I vividly remember one boardroom meeting where I went in and they had ordered pizza. and everybody's getting their pizza and sitting around the boardroom and eating their pizza. And I left, went back to my office, came back with the Tupperware full of like chicken and rice and broccoli. Now, this was back in a time when I didn't know what the heck sustainable even meant. And I was eating very bland food to get a result back then. But I was willing to be different. I literally warmed that up, came in, sat down, and of course, everybody in the meeting made their comments and, talked about how, they kind of, some people made fun, other people were curious. They were like, oh, so what are you eating? Like, why did you choose that? And, they'll ask me questions, and that was kind of cool too. But I was willing to go into that environment and be different. And if you want to be consistent, truly consistent, so that you can have consistent results, you've got to be willing to be different as well. And you've got to understand that different is not bad, okay? So are you committed? And these are the 4 requirements for that. Moving on, and we're almost done here. It's important for you to ask, who are you? Who are you? And what are your values and your priorities? And who do you want to be when it comes to your relationship with food? I think this is extremely important. And honestly, I think it's a question that not many people even know to ask or to think about. And that's why they struggle. You've got to ask yourself, what are your values and your priorities when it comes to food in your life and your health? What are your values? Are you someone who values prioritizing your health over being accepted, for instance, right? Are you someone, I can tell you, I am someone who values honoring my goals, whatever those goals might be in the moment, over everything else. I am someone who really values enjoyment in my food. And because of that, I really optimize. That's why I made the cookbook. I made the Healthy and Whole cookbook for me. And then I just shared it with my clients because I wanted to eat pizza and tacos and Chinese food and all my favorite foods all the time, every day, and still be really, really healthy. So I value enjoyment. I value variety. I value convenience. But I value being consistent. And that's very, very important to me. I value being around for my kids for a long, long time and being strong and healthy and energetic and functional. And those are my priorities when it comes to food and my health. Number 2, what is most important to you when it comes to your food and your health? Is it enjoyability or is it convenience? Is it being accepted and being social? What is it? What is actually most important to you? And just know what that is, right? And number 3, just who do you want to be when it comes to food and your health? Do you want to be the kind of person who proudly walks into a boardroom eating what is right for them and their goals at the time, no matter what anybody says, and to be able to proudly eat it, not get offended? That's me. That's what I want to be. I want to be the kind of guy that has no qualms about drinking a Diet Pepsi while everybody else jams on chips and queso, if in that moment, that is what is best for me to do. But I also value being the guy who knows when and how to really let loose and to have fun. I'm about to go to Miami on Friday for a couple of days with Joni. I'm going to be eating some amazing food. I'm going to be letting the reins loose and just really enjoying myself. And I love that. I can't wait to do that. I value being a foodie who is super healthy and knows how to execute that. That's sort of my identity when it comes to food and my health. Who do you want to be when it comes to food and your health? And this is all about understanding that it's not a diet. It's not a program. It's not even just a season of life that you're in, a weight loss season or a maintenance season or a bulk season. This is who you are. This is who you are becoming, and this is how you will live the rest of your life. And it's important that you have clarity around that. So let's wrap up here with just a summary list here of what I call the master list of some things that you can do to just really optimize some quick hit action items you could take home and make very, very practical and actionable here. Okay. Number 1, Build your menus inside the home and outside of the home with enough enjoyment and enough variety that you can stay ahead of diet fatigue and burnout. Super, super important. You must do this or you will never be successful in the long run. Number 2, make sure your options work for the time that you have available. If you have very little time, then you need options and recipes and things like that that can be prepared very time efficiently. You need ultra convenient options, things like that. Because if you don't, you're not going to stay consistent. Number 3, systemize your grocery shopping and your weekly meal planning and prepping if you can. Right? I know that when I hit the weekend, I'm going to go shopping Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to meal prep one recipe to help me through the week, and I'm good. What does that look like for you? Number 4, have a menu of ultra convenient options or DoorDash style options that still work so that when you have zero time, zero energy, zero desire to cook or to put any effort in, that you can still be successful. Number 5, go the extra mile where you need to, or be willing to fast until you can get something that works for you. It's all about commitment, right? Number 6, be willing to honor your goals, even if it isn't glamorous, right? Even if that means, I remember I went to a conference recently and they catered in Chick-fil-A, and I was on a cut at the moment. So I gave away my cookie, I gave away my chips, I took the bread off of my Chick-fil-A sandwich, and I ate the fried chicken breast, and I had a protein bar with me. That was my lunch. It wasn't glamorous. Everybody else was happy because they got to eat my cookie, they got to eat my chips, and I had a chicken breast and a protein bar. It wasn't glamorous, but I got shredded, and I was fine with that because I was willing to do it. Number 7, be willing to be different and to do what is not normal. And understand that what you eat in a group full of people or what you do in a group full of people should not have any real bearing on whether you feel loved and accepted. Because I got news for you. If the people that you hang out with are really going to like give you a hard time because you don't do exactly what they're doing, and you're not going to be loved and you're not going to be accepted because you're not eating all the chips and queso and drinking all the margaritas with them because it doesn't align with your goals, if they're really going to give you a hard time with that, you need to reevaluate who you are spending time with, because those people are not your friends. And number 8, decide who you are and who you are not when it comes to food. Decide what your identity and what your values are and what your priorities are and how you want to show up, what your relationship with food, what you want that to look like. And be clear on that, okay? So guys, that is it for this episode, and I hope this has been super helpful. If you want more just free stuff outside of the podcast here, then I encourage you, if you haven't yet, sign up for the free weekly newsletter. It's called the Practical Health Journal. I send it out every Tuesday and every Friday. There's a link down in the description of this podcast episode where you can sign up for that. Every Tuesday, I send out a deep dive article, kind of like something like this, but just in an article format. And every Friday, I send out what I would call a quick hit edition called the Feel Good Fridays edition. And it has recipes and my favorite product shares and just all sorts of stuff that just you can quickly implement or try to make this more and more sustainable for you every week. It's completely free. So hit the link down below and sign up. And if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button on this episode. And I just really appreciate you guys being here. We'll call it here, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. See you soon. Bye-bye.